Everyone, Hobbyist here. We are back at it again with another Nemesis guide. We are on the final character of just the base game of Nemesis, where you decided to go with the pilot. Due to the circumstances of things being outside of your control, like the event cards, or the way that the draft worked out with what help card that you picked and the order in which you got the draft, or the objectives of the pilot, which ones do you want to use the pilot on? I mean, the pilot has kind of a varied skill set, and it's kind of straightforward just based on title alone that the pilot is really good at working on the ship, especially when it comes to the cockpit. Your personal objective that you choose says something like the ship must reach Earth or the ship must reach Mars. The pilot is going to be the perfect character that you're going to want to pick. Anything that involves with that, you are for sure going to want to be able to have as the pilot. Because, like I said, she's the pilot. She's going to know how to fly the ship and move the ship and everything like that. So that not only translates into the cockpit, but I want to say that the pilot is the only other character that has a bit more decent combat. I'd say definitely better combat than the scientist, but not as effective with computers, even though she has some knowledge in that regard. So let's go a bit into the action deck to see what we're looking at when it comes to the pilot. The pilot actually has 4 cards that are exclusive only to her skill set, and it kind of gives you the shape of what the pilot is going to be looking like. So the first card that we have is we have computer skills. It works the exact same way as the scientists and the mechanics, as in it's a non-combat card, meaning you can't be in a room with an alien in order to use this card action. It costs you nothing to play, just play that card in order to do it, and you can either use it to open or close a door in a corridor connected to the room you are in, or if you're in a room with a computer, use its room activation without paying its cost. Still a great card, because playing with 1 card is always better than 2, especially if you're not sure what the intruder bag is looking like for as far as like when surprise attacks are taking place, or if you just want more actions in order to be able to do more things. That's always great. Just remember all the rooms that are especially useful to you. The cockpit itself doesn't have a computer per se, but that's really the only other area. So she's good at like weaknesses. If you're trying to do intruder weaknesses, I would say that the pilot's a good alternative to that. Of the scientist, when it comes to intruder weaknesses, that would be another objective that I didn't even think about till now. Or just being able to sabotage people through the computers, just in general. The pilot knows more about the ship, however, this card is honestly way cooler than anything else. And this is Old Friend. It is a non-combat card, so you can't be in a room with an intruder when you're trying to use this card action. It costs you nothing to play. And all it says is if you are in a working room without a computer, use this room action without paying its cost. Which honestly makes the pilot even more versatile than the scientist, because the scientist needs a computer to do something like this, whereas the pilot has the ability to do it without a computer, i.e. the storage room, i.e. the armory, the nest, I don't know, there's a whole bunch of rooms that don't have computers in them that the pilot can have access to for just 1 card, because again, the pilot knows the ship. She's the one who flies it everywhere. So it would make the most sense that she would be able to do all of these sorts of things. This card, that even lends to what I was talking about, is knowledge of the ship. It's also a non-combat card, meaning she can't use it if she's in a room with an alien. It also costs 0, which is great. And it gives you or options. You can either open or close a door in a corridor connected to the room you are in, which isn't bad, or look at any one unexplored room tile, then return it face down, without looking at its exploration token. Because it gives you that sense of reconnaissance to where sometimes you don't need to look at all the rooms on the ship. Sometimes that's just the reality of it. It's where if you're looking for a specific room, it gives you that option to do so. There's really not that any other characters or items inside of Nemesis that allow you to get that foresight. So taking advantage of that as the pilot in order to be like, okay, this is the laboratory. We might need to go this way. Oh, this is the nest. Oh, this is the slime room. We don't need to worry about those right now. Those can come up later. And you could be as honest about what you saw or dishonest, where if you know it's a certain room that might not be beneficial, then tell somebody, yeah, this is a good room, and let them walk into that trap over there. So that's honestly something that's pretty good. The last card that is exclusive just to the pilot is, well, piloting. It's kind of obvious. I mean, that's what the pilot does. So, just looking at it, we can see it's a non-combat card. So remember, if it's a non-combat card, it means you can't use it if there are intruders in the same room as you. It also is a no-cost card, so you can just play it and do it. And it gets two options that you can decide to take. So the important thing with that is that with the way that I play with my folks, whenever we play semi-cooperatively or anything of that sort, is that if your card says or like this, we like to be able to say, like, if the pilot is like, I want to play piloting, they don't have to elaborate on which option that they pick or anything like that. They can just do the secretive action on one of these two things. So that's really the flexibility that I like to give them a whole lot. But essentially, what piloting does is that if you are in the working cockpit or a room with a computer, use its room action without paying its cost. It's really good, especially if you're wanting to either be the one who sets the coordinates to escape through the Hibernatoruim route, or if you're trying to be the one who is trying to verify if somebody else was the one who did it, to make sure that you're actually in fact headed to Earth and that the coordinates are set correctly. The key thing is the way that the anatomy of the cockpit works for the rooms inside of Nemesis is that you can only ever either take a look at the coordinates to make sure you're headed to Earth, or you can mess with the dial itself to change the coordinates to go to that specific destination. So you kind of have to be considerate of which one that you're going to do. So that way, if you have this card in a full hand, you can use this card to either look at the coordinates first, and then you can put it back down, and then you drew two more cards in order to be able to move where the coordinates are going to actually send the ship. Because normally, for any other player inside of Nemesis, it would require 4 cards. 2 to look at the coordinates, and then 2 again to be able to actually change the coordinates themselves. So, it's saving you an extra card, like I've said a million times before. It makes it way easier for you inside of Nemesis, because it gives you an extra card to be able to do a whole bunch of other things, depending on what you're trying to do. And it gives you that extra card to where it decreases the chances of you getting a surprise attack whenever an intruder might show up during a noise roll. Also, if you are in a room with a computer as the second option, you can just check the coordinates. This makes it so much easier, so that way you could be like, this person said we were going to Mars, but then when you use this card, you can look and be like, no, we're going to deep space. Why are you lying to me? And you can either keep it that same, or if the objective of what they changed it to was sending it to Mars, you could be like, yeah, they did do that, and kind of just play it off as a lie. There's a way to do it that way too. It all just really depends on the circumstances of which you might be placed in. These action cards that the pilot has, as you can very clearly see, every single card, from knowledge of the ship, old friend, computer skills, and piloting, are all non-combat specific cards. The best way to kind of shut down the pilot and what the pilot is capable of is to put her in a combat situation with an intruder, whether it be closing the doors behind her, or making sure a bunch of noise happens in a particular location, things of that nature. So those would be the ways that you would kind of want to shut down the pilot. And as you also saw, there's 2 cards that are directly involved with if a computer is in the room. The best way to shut those down is to cause the room to be malfunctioning, because a malfunctioning room in Nemesis also means that that computer doesn't work either. The scientist only has the workaround of the holocomputer if he has it, but other than that, that would be the ways to shut them down. So that's pretty much it for as far as the action deck of the pilot goes. But now let's go to the items real quick, see what it is that we're dealing with. The pilot's starting weapon is the energy weapon shotgun. It makes it important that it's an energy weapon because it can be reloaded with energy charges that you find, which is a problem that the Captain has, as his revolver cannot be reloaded with energy charges, as we saw in that video. But the key thing here with the shotgun is kind of similar to the mechanics issue with his weapon in regards to the fact of you only get 2 shots. Sometimes that's not great. Sometimes you need that more ammo to be able to get more chances and things of that nature. But when it hits, it hits. Because the shotgun that the pilot has says that every time you deal at least 1 injury, you deal an additional injury, which is great. It works in the same regard as the soldier and what his assault rifle does. But I guess that's really the only con of it, is that you don't get as much ammo with it as you would, say, like I said, the assault rifle, or just the rifle that the scout has. So you kind of have to be a little bit more conservative and make sure that your shots count as best as you possibly can as the pilot, and be very selective with as much limited ammo as you have at what's the appropriate time to shoot the intruder instead of running away, instead of having items that might be able to help you out in those situations and things of that nature. We're going to move on to the pilot's quest items, and as per usual of any Nemesis character, she has 2 just like everybody else. So we're going to kind of take a look and see, as my personal preference, I only think 1 is actually pretty good. The second one is, I hate the price of it, but it has its uses really depending on the situation that you find yourself in. So let's kind of go over what I'm talking about to see what we mean. The quest item that I want to talk about is, I want to talk about the evacuation key. So like every quest item, is going to cost you 1 action card from your hand in order to activate this item. And then you just have to simply activate it inside of the fire control system room, which is, if you haven't seen the room sheet video, it is a room 1 tile, meaning that it always exists on the ship. It's just a matter of finding where it is. But if you do manage to find it, here is what it looks like. So as we can see here, it is a non-combat card, meaning that you can only use this if there are no aliens in the room. It also is a 1-use only card and costs you a card in order to activate it. The way that it works is that if you are in the evacuation section room, you can lock or unlock one of the escape pods in this evacuation section. This is crucial because the only other real ways that you can unlock escape pods are rather difficult. You have the occasional room 2 escape pod control system that exists that allows you to lock and unlock escape pods manually, but it's a room 2 tile. It's not always going to be in the game. The only other ways that the escape pods ever open inside of Nemesis is once the self-destruct threshold is met, or when the first character dies in the game, then all the escape pods will open then. Those are the only times that they open. Otherwise, for a very long time, the escape pods are going to be locked, and there's almost no guarantee way of being able to open them. But here, this is your 1 chance to be able to open them, to where if clearly things are going bad super early on, you've already completed your objective, you're going to want to turn this item on in order to get out. Or, if you know someone's trying to run and get out, you simply lock the pods behind them to where they essentially can't escape, to where all the aliens might have been following them this whole time. So it has its benefits or uses. Because it also says or right here when it says locking or unlocking an escape pod in the section, I treat it just like any other card that I have with the courtesy of telling that player, hey, I'm going to use my evacuation key. Do I have to elaborate whether I lock or unlock it? Not necessarily, because it's one of those things where you can kind of see if they do locking or unlocking. But yeah, I think that this is a great quest item. I think it especially synergizes with the security key that the scout has, because the scout can control the doors and the pilot can control the escape pods. So if you're playing cooperatively, the pilot and the scout might be a good duo to run with. Semi-cooperatively though, you're kind of neck and neck at each other depending on what the objectives are looking like. Then we have the orbital maneuvering system, and I hate the cost of this. I've said it multiple times now, but discarding an energy charge to activate this item is not my favorite at all whatsoever. You pay your 1 card from your hand as usual, and let's say you do decide to do this. Let's say you got like 6 energy charges or something crazy to where you're gonna be good for a while on ammo. I'm gonna flip this bad boy up. This doesn't have any particular symbol on it, so you can use it whether you're in or out of combat. It's gonna cost you a card in order to use it, and it's 1 use only. What it does is every player, including you, must pass immediately. This player phase immediately ends. In this event phase, skip step 5, intruder attack. This can be crucial if you want to make sure that nobody is moving, but it also might help a lot of people get out if you think they need that 1 more turn, either to heal or there's so many aliens around where there's not much that you could really do. So it has its sabotage uses, but considering that it affects to that degree, and that, again, I'm still hung up over the whole energy charge thing that you have to get rid of in order to access this. I don't even know if this item really is worth it. If I'm being frank, if you guys find a use for it, let me know down in the comments below. Is the orbital maneuvering system having been worked for you in any games of Nemesis? Whether you're playing solo, whether you're playing co-op, or if you're just playing a standard semi-co-op match. Because I personally have not found any sort of uses for it. Of course, as every character in Nemesis has, we have a rest card, repairs, demolition, 2 search cards right here, and interruption that exist inside of a player deck of Nemesis. So, overall, what exactly do I think of the pilot? And what are some of the pros and cons that I'm going to list up here? The pilot is great when it comes to being able to do anything that messes with the destinations, and especially working with a lot of the rooms inside of Nemesis, as she has cards that affect rooms with computers and a card that affects a room without a computer in it. So she gets to know the ship a bit more. She gets all of that reconnaissance from knowledge of the ship to being able to look at the room tiles and be like, okay, this room is important, this one's not important, so maybe we sabotage and send here, things of that nature. The shotgun is an okay starting weapon. It's kind of a lesser version of the soldier's assault rifle, but it's something that you can work with, and I don't find any worth inside of the orbital maneuvering system. I just haven't seen it yet, both from a cooperative, solo, or semi-cooperative standpoint. I've always just unlocked the security key, 1, because it cost me less things to do so, and 2, sometimes getting an escape pod has just been more critical to my success. So yeah, this is the last character inside of the Nemesis base game that I'm going to be covering. If you made it through all of these series of videos, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.